Good afternoon on what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Friday the 26th of April and I'm in the reading up with a nice hot cup of tea and a package to unbox. So this is from drive-through and it arrived today. Just fingers under the glue. Very securely glued down. There we go. What I've got in here, I've actually got 3 books, but I know what these are. Okay, so this is Investigator Weapons, Volume 1, the 1920s and 1930s, Tools of the Slaying Trade, the complete guide to bean shooters, choppers, gats, heaters, mossakas, pieces, rods and roscoes by Hans-Christian Vortisch. And this is a gun book, the gun book that you will need for playing Call of Cthulhu. Essentially, it's the only gun you're going to play need for playing Call of Cthulhu if you're playing in the 1920s and 30s. So, Investigator Weapons for the classic Jet Age, Call of Cthulhu is a comprehensive collection of firearms available to stalwart investigators of the Cthulhu mythos and their crazed cultist opponents. Investigator Weapons Volume 1, 1920s and 1930s covers handguns, rifles, shotguns, submachine guns, machine guns, flamethrowers, explosives, and special ammunition. And gathers together all the spot rules for injury, environmental conditions, firearms, and combat all in one place, as well as introducing many optional rules for enhanced play. Each weapon is illustrated and described in detail, as are variant models. Significantly, each weapon's operation is described, as are its typical malfunctions. Finishing each weapon description is the movie use of the weapon, so you can see it in action, and a comprehensive stat bar. The keeper is not forget neither. Typical weapons for NPCs are suggested, as are likely weapons for cultists from around the world. A keeper's chapter examines the effects of magic on firearms and ammunition, and the effect of firearms on mythos creatures. Hans-Christian Vortisch is author of Investigator Weapons Modern Day, Investigator Weapons 3, Gaslight and Wild West, Cthulhu Weapon Handbook, GURPS High-Tech Adventure Guns and GURPS Tactical Shooting, and has selected several dozens of the most typical or iconic weapons available to the discerning shooter from 1920 to 1939. These range from the famous Colt M1911 pistol or the iconic Thompson submachine gun to lesser known but equally worthy firearms. Investigator Weapons 1, the essential weapons book for the keeper and players of all editions of Call of Cthulhu. Okay, so this is published by Sixtystone Press, a British licensee of for Call of Cthulhu, and this is a book which I have actually worked on, rereading and rereading the entries again and again to get them just right. So, now the thing is, in Call of Cthulhu, you can just pick up a 45 and use it, go, bang, shoot, hopefully. Pull the trigger. Hopefully, it will affect the mythos creature. Probably won't, and hopefully, it will, drive off cultists or kill them or whatever. Your character, your investigator feels necessary to survive. But the thing is, some people do complain that gun combat in Call of Cthulhu isn't interesting. It's lacking in substance, and the weapons aren't very interesting. Now, I lean into the weapons aren't very interesting, but if I'm working on a Call of Cthulhu scenario, and sometimes I have been, especially if I'm working on a night one set in the 1920s or the modern day, I will say, what's the weapon that will actually this NPC will carry if they've got a pistol, and I'll name it, and I'll do that because that adds an element of verisimilitude. It doesn't matter, the stats don't matter, but naming it does add a bit of extra world building. So, the armed investigator, and this deals with this sort of like, you know, realism and the nature of gun combat, which includes confusion, because investigators could be caught by surprise. They may not know where someone shooting them is actually firing from, and that sort of thing. And also, gun combat can be frightening. And that's one of the things. Is sort of like, you know, oh, I'm going to pull out my gun and shoot. Well, oftentimes you've never done that before as a character, and it's probably very likely that you've never done it as a player either. So, you know, that's taken into account. Things like pulling a weapon from your pocket and the hammer getting caught on the lining of your coat, that sort of thing comes into question. So we also look at the consequences of combat before we move on to optional rules, including skill competency, concealed weapons, possible additional skills if you want more detailed rules for combat, rules for quick draw, how to handle that, shooting stances, called shots, automatic fire. Now, for the most part, if you're running Call of Cthulhu, these won't matter. But in some games, if you want that extra little bit of detail, they might. Shoot, and then rules for shooting in the cold, shooting in the desert, and they'll be repeated from one. A lot of these rules will be repeated from one volume to another. Shooting into and out of water, shooting from a mount or vehicle, calculating armor penetration. I mean, that's all going to complicate the, you know, the play, but it's going to add realism. So we've also got a guide there to realism and how to breach a room. And then when we look at weapons in the law, including permits around the world, including the USA, because, you know, it wasn't a free-for-all. You couldn't wander around with guns legally, you know. So, you know, but it deals with the USA, Australia, Canada. We've also got discussion there of the National Rifle Association, Germany, Great Britain, and other legislatures. You also have, it looks at other criminal investigations. What happens when you actually, you know, guns are used in pursuit of a crime. We've got a list of places where you can buy guns around the world. There are going to be more than that, but of course that's a good start. How to get a gun, so that goes with that gun store addresses, and then travelling with a gun, because not every country will accept, because the laws are different. And the laws will also different depending upon your background, and unfortunately in some cases your race. You know, so, you know, you may have more difficulty, you will have less difficulty carrying a gun if you're Caucasian than you are of a person of colour. Now that depends upon, you know, that there's a guidance in here for that, but that depends how far you want to go in terms of your realism. So then we have a breakdown of weapon game stats. And then typical investigator weapons, what they might carry. You know, according to, this is done by occupation. So let's have a look. Cowboy essentially would be sort of like, or right hands, sort of like a Colt SAA civilian, or and a Winchester Model 94. So that's a rifle and a revolver. So typical there, and it does this throughout. So you've got, you know, those are typical weapons for those occupations. Now they don't have to follow those exactly, but you know, that's a quick and easy way of arming an NPC or a player character, an investigator. So, and then we've got the conversion to 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, which is why we've got the new edition. Then we get into the weapons we've got with the handguns. So I'm going to show you just some of those, and we start off with, say for example, we have the Colt Detective Special there. So you've got the full details of the weapon, and then that includes essentially who makes it, what it's designed for, and then, you know, you've got how to use it. You've got a list of the films it appears in, and then you've got the stat block there, nice and clear. And it does the same thing for the cult government, the M1911. That's got a longer entry, and the entries all vary in length. You know, and that includes some quite radical different weapons or variants of it, and you've got all those listed in the stat blocks as well. So that's handguns. I'm just going to flip through. I'm not going to show you every page here because but you've got a good range of guns for your investigator and your police officer and your cultist. We have a section on body armour, what was available during the period, not a lot. And then one of the longest sections we have for handguns is for the Mauser C96. Numerous variants listed there, including, what is it, trying to find the Taiyuan 17 Shi, essentially a 45 ACP caliber pistol carbine. That you know, it was sort of like you could fire like a sort of, automatically, and then we move on to sort of like the most modern weapon we've got in there is the Walther PP, not the PPK. And then we move on to rifles. So we start off with the Colt M18 bar, very popular with the bank robbers. We've got the Enfield SMLE Mark III and Holland Royal double-barreled hammerless weapon made here in the United Kingdom, and so on. So numerous rifles. Section on sound suppressors and whether they were available and how. Move on to shotguns, including the Ithaca Auto and Burglar gun. And then we've even got sort of a couple of gangsters there. Submachine gun, and there aren't very many of these because there weren't very many of them available. Obviously, the first one is the Auto Ordnance Model 1921 Thompson, the infamous Tommy gun, and that's got a lengthy description. But there are others too, and you know this really kind of nails it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, in the coffin for the Tommy gun. I don't need to read another article about the Tommy gun in Call of Cthulhu, or we would edit one section on hand grenades. Just the same thing for machine guns, gas grenades, ammunition and accessories. So this is all the means of carrying things, holsters, bags, shotgun slugs, that sort of thing. List of melee weapons available during the period. Lots of those available. We're moving on to flamethrowers, if you can get hold of one. Only got a couple of those in here because you don't really need one of these. But unusual weapon, we've got things like the flaming bayonet, and the spray gun. All entertaining stuff. Explosives. Bibliography, quite a lengthy bibliography actually. And then the Keepings Appendix deals with weapons that a cultist might arm themselves with, and then what happens when things like fire, magic, tear gas and so on comes into a fight with the mythos creatures. And then we get to sections here for the author, we have quite a lengthy section of credits, and an index, and then rule summaries at the end. Master list of all the weapons. And then adverts for both Investigator Weapons Modern Day. There we go, there's Volume 2. Volume 3 is Gaslight and Wild West. In some ways, the Gaslight one is the most fun, I think. But that is Investigator Weapons Volume 1, 1920s and 1930s. I think this is a great book. It does add a great deal to your game if you want to bring in more, but not necessarily place an emphasis upon arms and armament, but necessarily essentially add a dash of realism or a dash of verisimilitude of realism in terms of just feel for the game. Optional, of course, but it's a good source book there, I think, if that's what you're after. I'm biased, of course, because I'm involved in production, but I do think it's a good source book. Anyway, thanks for watching another unboxing of the Nook. If you enjoyed it, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be able to get more unboxings of the Nook, where you will see me out here with a parcel containing actually 3 copies of this book, in case a supplement for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, published via the Drive-Thru RPG, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing of the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.